A young billionaire saves two poor twin girls from being run over in front of the school. They wake up in the hospital and ask, "Why did you save us?" His answer is unbelievable. The receptionist looked Rachel up and down. Her wrinkled dress, old purse, worn-out shoes. Everything about her screamed that she didn't belong there. "Do you have an appointment with Mr. Cole?" Rachel squeezed the strap of her purse. Her hands were trembling. "No, but it's urgent. Please, he's in a meeting. I can take a message if you'd like. Tell him it's Rachel Martinez. He'll see me." The receptionist hesitated. Something in Rachel's tone made her pick up the phone. "Mr. Cole? There's someone named Rachel Martinez here. She says it's urgent." "Yes, sir." She hung up, surprised. "You can go up, 20th floor, room 2012. In the elevator, Rachel closed her eyes. 6 years. 6 years since the last time she'd seen Nathan Cole. The 22-year-old guy she'd met in college had become one of the most respected businessmen in the city. She'd seen his name in the papers, in business magazines. Always smiling, always winning, while she was here. The doors opened. The hallway was wide and silent, expensive paintings on the walls, plush carpet underfoot. Rachel walked slowly until she reached room 2012. She knocked on the door. "Come in," his voice, deeper, more confident, but it was still Nathan. Rachel pushed the door open and walked in. Nathan was standing, his back to her, looking out the window, impeccable suit, perfect posture. When he turned around, Rachel felt her breath catch. He hadn't changed that much. The same face, the same brown eyes. Only now there was something different about him. Maturity, success, everything she didn't have. "Rachel." He said her name as though it were a strange word. "Hi, Nathan." Silence. They looked at each other for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. "Sit down, please." Nathan motioned toward the chair in front of the desk. Rachel sat, placing her purse in her lap. "You look different." 8 years does that to a person. Nathan sat as well, folding his hands on the desk. "What do you want, Rachel?" Straight to the point. That was new too. The Nathan she'd known was more gentle, more patient. Rachel took a deep breath. She opened her purse with trembling hands and took out a photo. "I need to show you something." She placed the photo on the desk and pushed it toward him. Nathan glanced down. He frowned, then picked up the picture. 2 girls, identical. Curly brown hair, big, expressive eyes. One of them was smiling at the camera. The other looked more serious. They were in a park, wearing simple but clean dresses. "Who are they?" Rachel's heart pounded. "Emily and Sophie." "Okay. And I need to know this because—" Nathan looked up at her, impatience in his eyes. Rachel swallowed hard. "They're your daughters." The world stopped. Nathan went completely still. The photo still in his hand, his eyes fixed on it as though Rachel's words hadn't fully reached him. "What?" "They're your daughters, Nathan." The photo trembled in his hand. Nathan slowly placed it back on the desk. "How? You never told me." "Because you left me before I found out." It was months later when I learned I was pregnant. Nathan jumped to his feet so abruptly his chair creaked. This can't be true." "It's true." "Why didn't you come looking for me? Why didn't you tell me?" Rachel felt tears threatening to fall. She blinked quickly to hold them back. "Because you left, Nathan. You said you needed to follow your path, that you couldn't, that I wasn't part of your plans. But these are children, Rachel. They're children." "I know. You think it was easy for me." Her voice came out louder than she intended. Nathan paused in his pacing. "After you left, I was lost. I didn't know what to do. By the time I discovered I was pregnant, it was too late. You had already moved to another city, started your company. I was scared to call, to show up in your new life and tell me I had kids. I was afraid." Rachel stood too, tears finally streaming down her cheeks. "Afraid of what? That you wouldn't believe me? That you'd think I was lying to get you back? That you wouldn't want them?" Nathan looked at the photo again. He picked it up, studying every detail. "How old are they?" 5. 5 years. Rachel, 5 years of their lives I've missed. "I know," What are they like? What do they like to do? Do they ask about me? Rachel wiped her face with the back of her hand. Emily is quieter, more observant. She loves drawing and reading. Sophie is pure energy. She talks all the time, asks 1,000 questions. And yes, they ask about you. They've always asked. Nathan sank into his chair heavily. What did you tell them? The truth. That their father had to leave before they were born. And why are you telling me this now after 5 years? Rachel sat down again, staring at her own hands. Because I've been unemployed for 4 months. The bills are overdue. They deserve more than I can give. Nathan was silent. I only came out of desperation, Nathan. If I had another option, you wouldn't have come. No. He sighed deeply. He looked at the photo again. They're still so little. Everyone says they're your spitting image. Nathan almost smiled. Almost. Where do you live? In my aunt's apartment. She passed away last year and left it to me. It's small, but it's ours. And school. They go to the local public school. They're good students. Nathan nodded slowly, still gazing at the photo. I need some time to think. Rachel stood. Of course. I'm sorry for showing up like this. I know it was a shock. It was. My phone number is the same. If you want to talk. Nathan looked up. Rachel. Yes. Do they know you came here? No, they don't know anything. He nodded. I'll think about what to do. Rachel walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned back. Nathan? Yes. They're amazing. You missed a lot, but there's still time to get to know them. And she left, leaving Nathan alone with the photo of the daughters he never knew he had. Nathan couldn't work for the rest of the day. The photo of the girls stayed on his desk, and he picked it up every 5 minutes. Emily and Sophie, his daughters, 5 years of life he had completely missed. When the office emptied out, he was still there, alone with his thoughts and a truth that changed everything. He picked up the phone and dialed his personal assistant. Mark, I need you to do a discreet inquiry. Rachel Martinez lives in this city. I want to know where she lives, where she works, or worked, and where the girls go to school. Sir. Just do it, Mark, and I want everything by tomorrow morning. Nathan hung up and looked at the photo again. The girls had his eyes, his face shape. How hadn't he noticed right away? Because he was in shock. Because 6 years is a long time. Because he never imagined he could have children. He tucked the photo into his wallet and went home. The next morning, Mark knocked on the door carrying a folder. Here's the information you requested, sir. Nathan opened the folder. Address, the girls' school, Rachel's financial situation, all of it there in black and white. Rachel hadn't lied about being unemployed. There were overdue bills, notices about utility cuts. The apartment was small, in a modest neighborhood. The girls went to the local public school, Hillbrook Elementary. Nathan closed the folder and looked out the window. Mark, cancel my morning appointments. Sir. And prepare a donation for Hillbrook Elementary, something substantial. I want to deliver it personally. Mark hesitated. May I ask why? Nathan turned around. Personal interest. Hillbrook Elementary was in a neighborhood Nathan had never visited. The streets were full of potholes. Some houses needed a fresh coat of paint, and the school showed signs of limited resources, peeling walls, an old playground, but there were children's drawings on the walls and the typical buzz of a lively school. Nathan parked in front of the gate and took a deep breath. His daughters were inside. The principal, Mrs. Peterson, greeted him with surprise and gratitude when she heard about the donation. Mr. Kohler, what a surprise. The school really needs help. Our budget is very tight. It's my pleasure to help. I'd like to learn more about your day-to-day operations. Of course. How about a tour? Nathan nodded, his heart beat faster with each step. They walked through classrooms with old desks, a small library with few books, a simple cafeteria. Nathan noticed the lack of resources everywhere, but also the teachers' efforts to do their best with what little they had. This is our kindergarten room, Mrs. Peterson said, stopping outside a door with a window. The 5-year-olds. Nathan looked through the glass and his world stopped. There they were, Emily and Sophie, seated side by side at a small, worn table. Their clothes were clean but simple and a bit worn. Emily was carefully drawing with a broken colored pencil. Sophie was swinging her legs under the chair, talking animatedly to the girl next to her. "They're identical twins," the principal commented, following Nathan's gaze. "Emily and Sophie Martinez, adorable girls, but very different from each other." "How so?" "Emily's more reserved, introspective. She loves to draw and read. Sophie is, well, a whirlwind. She never stops talking, makes friends with everyone, and always has 1,000 questions." Nathan couldn't take his eyes off the girls. They were real. Right there, just a few feet away from him, living their lives without knowing their father stood on the other side of the glass. "Their mother does what she can," Mrs. Peterson continued quietly. "Rachel lost her job a few months ago. Sometimes the girls come without lunch, but they never complain. They're resilient kids." Nathan swallowed hard. "Could I meet the children?" "Sure, they love visitors." The principal opened the classroom door. "Excuse me, Miss Sarah. We have a special visitor today." The teacher smiled, and the children turned to look at Nathan with curiosity. "This is Mr. Cole. He made a very generous donation to our school." Nathan walked into the room, his legs weak. 20 pairs of curious little eyes stared at him, but he only saw 2 specific pairs. Emily stopped drawing and watched him carefully. Sophie beamed a wide smile. "Hi," Sophie said, waving. "You're really tall." A few children giggled. Nathan smiled for the first time in 24 hours. "Hi to you too." "What do you do?" Sophie asked bluntly. "Sophie," the teacher gently reprimanded. "It's okay," Nathan said, crouching down to their level. "I work at a company." "What kind of company?" Sophie pressed on. Emily remained silent, but Nathan noticed she was listening to every word. "We help other businesses grow." "Is that cool?" "Sometimes," Sophie laughed. Emily finally spoke, in a quiet voice. "Your suit is nice." Nathan looked at her, heart tightening. "Thank you. Your drawing is nice too." Emily glanced at her paper and blushed. "It's just a butterfly." "Can I see?" Emily hesitated, then slid the paper toward him. It really was a butterfly, drawn with surprising care for a 5-year-old. "It's perfect," Nathan said, meaning it. "I can draw too," Sophie interjected, grabbing her own paper. Her drawing was more childlike, full of bright colors and abstract shapes. "This is our home, and me and Emily and Mom." Nathan studied the picture, 3 stick figures in front of a small house, all smiling. "Your family looks happy." "We are," Sophie said, "except sometimes Mom gets sad." "Sophie," Emily muttered, elbowing her sister. "It's true." She looks at the bills and sighs. Nathan felt a pang in his chest. He glanced at Emily, who had lowered her eyes. "Children, shall we get back to our activities?" the teacher suggested. Nathan stood, his legs still shaking. "It was a pleasure meeting you." "Bye," Sophie called out, waving enthusiastically. Emily gave a small, shy wave. Nathan left the classroom with the principal, but his mind stayed behind with his daughters, Emily and Sophie. The tour continued, but Nathan hardly paid attention. His head was full of the girls' voices, their drawings, the way Emily observed him with those attentive eyes. "So what did you think?" Mrs. Peterson asked as they returned to her office. "It's an excellent school. The children seem happy. We do our best. The donation you mentioned will be a big help." Nathan pulled out his checkbook. "What else do you need?" "Well, we always need basic school supplies, books for the library, lunch for children who don't have any, and the roof is leaking." Nathan wrote a figure that made the principal's eyes widen. "Mr. Cole, this is very generous. It's for a good cause." He signed the check and stood up. "Thank you for the tour. Please come back anytime. The children loved meeting you." Nathan left the school feeling a mix of emotions: joy at finally seeing his daughters, pain for the lost years, guilt for not being there, and a new guilt. His daughters studied in a school that barely had basic resources, while he drove expensive cars and lived in a penthouse. He was heading to his car when he heard familiar voices. "Emily, come on. I'm coming. Nathan turned around. The girls were leaving the school hand in hand. Emily carried a small, dented lunchbox. Sophie swung a backpack that had seen better days. Even so, they seemed happy, chatting as they walked. They were coming right toward him, but they hadn't noticed him yet. Nathan stood still, watching. It was like watching a movie of his own life he never knew existed. And then Miss Sarah said my drawing was beautiful, but I think yours was better, Sophie was saying. Mine was crooked, Emily replied. No, it wasn't. That man liked it too. The man in the suit? Uh-huh, he was nice and tall. Nathan smiled. They were talking about him. The girls reached the curb and stopped. Emily looked both ways carefully, as Rachel must have taught them. Sophie tapped her foot impatiently. Can I cross now? Wait, let me check for cars. Nathan stood only a few yards away, hearing every word, seeing every expression. Emily, always cautious. Sophie, always eager. Okay, now, Emily said. They held hands and started across the street. That's when Nathan saw it. A car was coming down the road, going way too fast. The driver was looking at his phone, not at the road. The girls were right in the middle of the street. The car wouldn't stop in time. Nathan didn't think, he didn't hesitate, he ran. Watch out! He reached them just as the driver finally looked up and slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. Nathan grabbed both girls and pulled them to him, throwing himself toward the curb. The three of them tumbled across the asphalt as the car screeched by, stopping a few yards ahead. For a few seconds, there was silence. Then Sophie started crying. Nathan got up quickly, ignoring the pain in his knee. Emily was sitting on the ground, eyes wide, a small red mark on her arm. Sophie was crying, but she seemed more scared than hurt. Are you okay? Nathan asked, crouching beside them. Emily nodded, still in shock. Sophie kept crying. My knee hurts, Sophie sobbed. Nathan looked at it. It was just a scrape, but it was bleeding a little. The driver got out of the car, pale as a sheet. I'm sorry, I didn't see. They came out of nowhere. Call an ambulance, Nathan said, not taking his eyes off the girls. They don't need an ambulance, Emily whispered. We're okay. Yes, you do. You had a big scare. Nathan helped them stand. Emily had a scrape on her arm, Sophie on her knee. Nothing serious, but he wasn't taking any chances. How did you know our names? Emily asked suddenly. Nathan realized he had shouted their names. He thought fast. I was at your school today, I remember you two. Oh, Emily said. You're the man in the suit. That's me. The ambulance arrived a few minutes later, along with a police car. The paramedics checked the girls and confirmed they only had minor scrapes, but recommended going to the hospital as a precaution. What about their parents? One of the paramedics asked. Nathan hesitated. I'll call their mother. He had Rachel's number in his wallet from Mark's report. He dialed with shaking hands. Hello? Rachel, it's Nathan. Nathan, how do you have my number? Doesn't matter now. Emily and Sophie had an accident. They're okay, just scrapes, but they're going to the hospital. Silence on the other end. Which hospital? St. Mary's. Rachel, I promise they're fine. I'm on my way. The line went dead. At the hospital, Nathan waited in the reception area while the doctors examined the girls. He had called Mark, cancelled all his meetings for the day. Nothing else mattered now. Sophie fell asleep during the ride, exhausted from the scare. Emily stayed awake, watching Nathan with curiosity. Why did you save us? She asked when they were alone in the ambulance. Nathan looked at her, those eyes so much like his, waiting for an honest answer. Because that's what people do. We protect those who need protecting. Emily nodded, as though that made sense to her. Thank you. You're welcome. You hurt your knee. Nathan looked down. There was blood on his torn pant leg. It's nothing. Does it hurt? A little. Emily was silent for a moment. My mum says that when someone gets hurt saving us, we never forget. Nathan felt his eyes sting. Your mum is a wise woman. She is. At the hospital, the girls were taken for tests. Nathan stayed in the waiting room, pacing back and forth. When Rachel arrived in a panic, Nathan stood up. Where are they? They're being examined. Rachel, they're fine. Just some scrapes. Rachel stared at him, still processing the situation. What were you doing there? Nathan hesitated. I went to their school. I made a donation. A donation? I wanted to see them. Rachel closed her eyes. Nathan, they're okay, Rachel, I promise. A doctor approached. Family of Emily and Sophie Martinez. I'm their mother, Rachel said. The girls are doing great, just superficial scrapes. We'll keep them for a few hours of observation, just to be safe, but they can go home later today. Rachel exhaled with relief. Can I see them? Of course. They're awake and asking for you. The doctor walked off. Rachel looked at Nathan. Thank you for saving them. No need to thank me. I do. If you hadn't been there. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Can I see them too? Nathan asked. Rachel hesitated, then nodded. I think they'd like to thank you themselves. They walked down the hospital corridor together. Nathan was about to truly meet his daughters at last. Nathan and Rachel walked in silence through the white hospital corridor. The smell of disinfectant filled the air, blending with the tension between them. They stopped in front of room 305, where the girls were. Rachel took a deep breath before opening the door. The twins were on side-by-side beds, small bandages on Emily's arm and Sophie's knee. Both looked calmer now, their curious eyes following the adults as they entered. "Mom!" Sophie exclaimed, smiling wide. Emily just watched, her observing gaze going from her mom to Nathan and back. Rachel rushed over and hugged them carefully. "Are you okay? I was so worried." "We're fine, huh, Mom? Just scrapes," Emily said, ever the sensible one. "The doctor said we can go home later today," Sophie added. Rachel kissed both of their foreheads, and only then did they turn all their attention to Nathan, who stood near the door. "It's the man in the suit," Sophie pointed, excited. "He saved us, Mom." Rachel glanced at Nathan, unsure what to say next. "Girls, this is Nathan." The twins looked at him with renewed curiosity. "Thank you for saving us," Emily said, her voice soft but firm. Nathan approached, heart pounding. "You're welcome. How are you feeling?" "My knee still hurts a little," Sophie said, pouting. "But the doctor said I'm super brave." "And you are," Nathan said, smiling at her. An awkward silence filled the room. The girls studied Nathan, then looked at their mom, sensing something else was going on. Emily broke the silence with the question that had been on her mind since the ambulance ride. "Why did you do that?" Nathan looked at Rachel, who bit her lip nervously. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. "Why did you jump in front of the car to save us?" Emily insisted. "You don't even know us." Nathan stepped closer, sitting on the edge of Emily's bed. "Actually, I do know you. Or I should." The girls frowned, confused. Rachel sat on Sophie's bed, holding her daughter's hand. Nathan took a deep breath. "I saved you because I'm your father." The room went completely still. The twins' eyes went wide, darting between Nathan and Rachel, waiting for some sign that this was a joke. Rachel nodded slowly. "It's true, girls. This is your dad." Sophie reacted first, her mouth forming a perfect "Oh." "Our dad? Our real dad?" "Yes," Rachel replied, her voice trembling slightly. Emily said nothing, her eyes studying Nathan as though trying to find parts of herself in him. "But you went away," Emily finally said, her voice small. Nathan felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. I didn't know about you," he answered honestly. "I didn't know I had two amazing daughters." "How could you not know?" Sophie asked, tilting her head. Rachel interjected, "That was my fault, girls. I never told him." The twins processed this information in their own way. Emily, thoughtful and cautious. Sophie, bursting with questions. "So you didn't leave us on purpose?" Sophie asked. "Never," Nathan said firmly. "If I had known about you, I would have been here every day." "So now what?" Emily finally spoke, her voice more serious than any 5-year-old's should be. "Will you stay?" The question hung in the air, heavy with hope and fear. Nathan looked at the girls, then at Rachel, and knew exactly how to answer. "I will if you and your mom let me. I want to know you. I want to be here now." Sophie beamed, instantly accepting his answer. Emily stayed serious, but something in her eyes softened. "Are you going to live in our house?" Sophie asked, already imagining the possibilities. Rachel blushed. "Sophie, that's not how it works." "Why not? Don't dads live with moms?" Nathan and Rachel exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Sometimes yes, sometimes no," Nathan explained. "But what's important is that I'll be in your lives, no matter where I live." Sophie nodded, satisfied for now. Emily still watched him warily. "You have a lot of money, right?" Sophie asked, pointing to his suit, now torn and stained from the accident. "Sophie," Rachel scolded, "but it's true, Mom. You said he has a big company." Nathan smiled at the child's honesty. "I do have a company. Yes," Sophie brightened. "Then you can help Mom. She's out of a job. And every day we get bills in the mail that make her cry." "Sophie," Rachel exclaimed, mortified. "But it's true. We hear you crying at night, right, Emily?" Emily nodded silently, her eyes never leaving Nathan's. Rachel looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her. "Calm down, girls," she said, trying to change the subject. "You need to rest. We can talk about all this later." But Nathan had already made up his mind. "I'll help, yes," he said firmly. "I'll help you with anything you need." Rachel opened her mouth to protest, then shut it again. She knew she needed help. For them. For the girls. Sophie grinned, satisfied. "So you're really gonna be our dad? For real?" Nathan felt a lump in his throat. "I'm already your dad. I just didn't know it until now." Emily finally asked, "Can we call you Dad?" The simple, direct question made Nathan's eyes sting. "You can call me whatever you want. Dad, Nathan. Whatever feels right." "I want to call you Dad," Sophie decided immediately. "I always wanted a dad." All eyes turned to Emily, who still seemed to be evaluating Nathan. "I'll think about it," she finally said, and Nathan smiled, respecting the space she needed. A nurse entered the room, interrupting the moment. "How are our little patients? Time to check vitals." While the nurse examined the girls, Nathan approached Rachel. "We need to talk," he whispered. "About everything." Rachel nodded, her gaze still on her daughters. "I know. I'm not mad at you for not telling me before. I'm just sad about the lost years, but I want to make up for it. I want to know them." Rachel finally looked him in the eyes. "They're the best of me, Nathan, the best of both of us." He nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "We'll make it work for them." The nurse finished her checks and smiled. "They're doing great. The doctor will be by soon to discharge them." Once she left, Sophie yawned, tired from the ordeal. "I'm sleepy." "Get some rest," Rachel said, adjusting her blanket. Within minutes, Sophie was asleep. Emily held out a little longer, still watching Nathan, until her eyes started to close too. Nathan and Rachel stood there, gazing at their sleeping daughters. Knowing nothing would ever be the same, everything had changed. Within hours, Nathan had gone from a successful businessman to the father of 2 5-year-olds. And scary as it was, he realized it was the best thing that had ever happened to him. 3 days had passed since the accident. Nathan parked his car in front of the modest 3-story building where Rachel lived with the girls. The neighborhood was quiet, evidently middle class at best. Some buildings needed new paint. There were broken toys in the small playground on the corner. Nathan carried 2 large grocery bags and a folder of documents. His heart pounded as he walked up to the gate. Since the hospital, he had been texting, calling, figuring out how he could help. But this was his first time visiting his daughter's home. He pressed the buzzer for apartment 203. "Who is it?" Rachel's voice asked through the intercom. "It's me, Nathan." A brief silence. Then the sound of the door being unlocked. Nathan climbed the worn stairs, noticing the chipped paint on the walls. On the second floor, the door to 203 was already open. Rachel waited, wearing simple jeans and a t-shirt that had seen better days. Even so, she looked pretty. Tired, but pretty. "Hi," she said. "Come in." The moment Nathan stepped inside, he heard an excited squeal. "Dad!" Sophie came running and threw herself against his legs, hugging them. Nathan felt his heart jump at how natural it sounded for her to call him Dad. "Hi, Sophie," he said, balancing the bags while patting her head. Emily appeared just behind her, more reserved. She stood a few feet away, observing him. "Hi, Emily." Nathan smiled at her. "Hi," she replied quietly, then pointed to the bags. "What did you bring?" "Some things for dinner and dessert." Sophie's eyes lit up. "Dessert? We almost never have dessert." Rachel took one of the bags from Nathan's hand. "Thanks, but you didn't have to." "I wanted to." She nodded, taking the bag to the small kitchen. Nathan followed, Sophie still clinging to his leg, with Emily trailing behind. The apartment was tiny, but tidy and clean. The living room and kitchen almost formed a single space. The furniture was old, most of it second-hand, but each piece had its place. There were the girls' drawings on the fridge, potted plants on the windowsills, a few photos in simple frames. Little space, few resources, but a lot of love in every detail. Nathan set the other bag on the kitchen table and began to unload items. Fresh fruit, vegetables, meat, bread, cookies, ice cream. "Nathan, this is too much," Rachel said, eyeing the amount of food. "It's just the basics." Sophie stood on her tiptoes, trying to peek inside the bags. "Is there chocolate?" Nathan smiled and pulled out a chocolate bar. "There is, but only after dinner, okay?" Sophie nodded enthusiastically. "Can I show you our room?" she asked, tugging on his hand. "Sure." Nathan looked at Rachel, who nodded, giving permission. Come on," Sophie led him down the short hallway. "We share the room. Mom sleeps in the living room." Nathan frowned, glancing back. Rachel avoided his gaze as she put groceries away. The girls' room was tiny. There was barely room for two small beds, one against each wall, and an old dresser between them. More drawings were taped to the walls, and a plastic box held their few toys. "This is my bed," Sophie said, pointing to the one with a faded but colorful blanket. "And that's Emily's." Emily stood in the doorway, watching everything with her thoughtful eyes. "It's small," she said simply. Nathan nodded, looking around. "But it's cozy." Sophie jumped onto her bed. "Mom made these quilts. I picked the colors myself." Nathan noted how, despite their simplicity, the beds were neatly made. Their clothes were carefully folded in the dresser, their few toys stored, their worn children's books lined up. Everything was clean and orderly, but undeniably modest. "Do you want to see my new drawing?" Sophie asked, already grabbing a piece of paper from the dresser. "Sure." While Sophie showed him her art, a colorful mix of people and flowers, Nathan took in every detail of the small room. Each corner was used to its fullest, but it was clearly far too cramped for two growing children. "That's you, that's Mom, that's me, that's Emily," Sophie explained, pointing at the figures. Nathan knelt to see the drawing better. "You draw very well, Sophie." "Emily draws better." Nathan looked at Emily, who sat on her bed, watching. "Do you like to draw?" She nodded. "Can I see one of your drawings?" Emily hesitated, then pulled a notebook from under her pillow. She opened it to a page and showed Nathan. It was a drawing of a park, with trees, benches, and 3 figures, 2 small ones holding hands with a bigger one. "Is that you, Sophie, and your mum?" Emily nodded. "At the park near our school. We go there on Sundays." "It's really good, Emily. You have talent." "Mum says I draw like you," she said, watching his reaction. Nathan blinked, surprised. "Your mum said that?" Emily nodded. "She said you used to draw in college." Nathan smiled at the memory. "That's true. I like to draw. I did some design work for a few clubs." "Do you still draw?" "Not as much as I should." Nathan flipped through a few more pages, admiring his daughter's artistry. Emily had a remarkable attention to detail for someone her age. "Do you have colored pencils?" he asked. Emily and Sophie exchanged glances. "We had some, but they're all used up," Sophie said. "And Mom said we have to wait until next month to buy more." Nathan felt another pang in his chest. "What else do you need to draw?" Emily shrugged. "Paper, markers, a new pencil sharpener. And modeling clay," Sophie added. "Ours at school is too hard." Nathan nodded, making a mental note. I'll bring those things next time, okay? Sophie's eyes sparkled. Promise? I promise. Rachel appeared at the door. Girls, have you shown Nathan everything? Dinner will be ready soon. He liked our drawings, Mom, Sophie exclaimed, jumping off the bed. And he's going to bring new colored pencils. Rachel looked at Nathan, her expression complicated. That's not necessary. I want to. The four returned to the kitchen. Rachel continued preparing dinner while Nathan sat at the small table with the girls. Sophie chattered non-stop about school, her friends, their games. Emily remained quieter, but alert, occasionally correcting Sophie when she exaggerated a story. And then my teacher said my work was the best in the class, Sophie declared. She said it was one of the best, Emily corrected. Not the best. Same thing. No, it's not. Nathan smiled at their interaction. It was fascinating how two identical sisters could be so different. Sophie, outgoing and energetic. Emily, reserved and precise. As the girls chatted, Nathan glanced around, taking in every detail of the apartment. On the living room table, he spotted some bills. When Rachel went to the bathroom, he took a quick look. Overdue electricity, overdue rent, final notices. His stomach sank. While he lived in a luxurious penthouse, Rachel and the girls, his girls, were struggling with the basics. When Rachel returned, he picked up the folder he had brought. We need to talk after they go to bed, he said quietly. She nodded, tense. Dinner was lively. The girls were delighted by Nathan's presence, especially Sophie, who peppered him with questions. Is your house big? It's an apartment. Yes, it's big. Does it have a pool? The building does. Can we visit? Rachel intervened. Sophie, don't be nosy. It's fine, Nathan said. And yes, you can visit whenever you want. Is there a playground? Sophie pressed. Nathan chuckled. No, there's no playground, but there's a nice view of the city. Emily Font, who had been quiet, finally spoke. Do you live alone? Nathan nodded. Yes, I do. No wife? Emily continued. No other kids? Nathan shook his head. No, no wife, no other kids, just you two. Sophie smiled, satisfied. I knew it. Emily seemed to process that. Why didn't you ever tell us about him, Mom? She asked suddenly, looking at Rachel. Silence fell over the table. Rachel set her fork down slowly. Because it hurt too much to remember, she answered honestly. Nathan felt his chest tighten. Rachel continued. Sometimes it's when you love someone very much and then that person leaves, it hurts to talk about them. Even if you want to. Do you still love him? Sophie asked innocently. Rachel blushed. Sophie, finish your dinner. But I just... Ice cream, Nathan cut in, trying to save Rachel from embarrassment. I brought chocolate and strawberry. It worked. Sophie forgot the question and launched into a debate about which flavor she liked best. Emily watched carefully, but didn't press further. After dinner and dessert, the girls started yawning. It had been a long day. Bath and bed, girls, Rachel announced. But Dad just got here, Sophie protested. He can come back tomorrow, said Rachel, glancing at Nathan. If he wants to, I will, Nathan confirmed. And I'll bring those colored pencils I promised. Sophie beamed. Then she gave Nathan a big hug before heading to the bathroom. Emily approached, more hesitant. Are you really coming back tomorrow? I am. Promise. Promise. She nodded seriously, then turned to follow her sister. At the bathroom door, she looked back. Good night, Dad. And she disappeared into the bathroom. Nathan stood there, feeling that word echo within him. Dad. She'd called him Dad. Once the girls were in bed, Rachel returned to the living room. Nathan sat on the sofa, the same one that folded into her bed each night. They're incredible, he said. They are. Rachel sat in the armchair across from him, looking tired. Why didn't you ever tell me you sleep in the living room? Nathan asked. She shrugged. It's not relevant. Of course it is. Rachel sighed. Nathan, I didn't come to you for charity. It's not charity. They're my daughters too. My responsibility. He opened the folder and pulled out some papers. I paid your overdue bills. Rachel's eyes widened. What? How did you... I saw them on the table today. I took care of everything. Electricity, water, rent, the girls' extracurricular fees, all of it. Nathan, I can't accept that. It's already done. She ran her hands over her face. I don't want your pity. It's not pity, Rachel. It's the least I can do. You took care of them alone for 5 years. Now it's my turn to help. He took another paper from the folder. And here's a bank card in your name. I deposited an amount for monthly expenses. I'll add to it every month. Rachel looked at the card as if it were venomous. I don't need this. The girls do. That silenced her. Rachel knew he was right. I still don't feel good about this. It feels like I'm charging you for lost time. I lost 5 years of their lives, Rachel. 5 years I'll never get back. Let me do this, please. Rachel finally took the card. Thank you. Nathan nodded. He looked around the small apartment. This place is too cramped for the 3 of you. We manage. Emily and Sophie need space. You do too. Rachel raised a hand. Stop. Let's not talk about this right now. Nathan sighed. Okay, but we'll have to talk about it eventually. They fell silent for a moment. It was strange, sitting here face to face after so many years, with their daughters asleep in the next room. They're so different from each other, Nathan said. Rachel smiled. They always have been, since they were babies. Sophie's always been outgoing, chatty, impulsive. Emily's always been observant, calm and thoughtful. Emily reminds me of you, and of you too. The way she watches, thinks before speaking. It's just like you in college. Nathan smiled at the memory. Sophie is pure energy, just like your younger sister. Remember her? I do. She was exactly like that. Another pause. But it felt less tense now. They were just 2 parents talking about their children. You did an amazing job with them, Rachel, even with all the difficulties. I tried my best. You did more than that. Rachel looked at him, her eyes shining with tears she refused to shed. Thank you for coming back into their lives. Thank you for letting me... Nathan stood up. It was late, and he knew Rachel needed rest. I'll be back tomorrow with the colored pencils. Rachel smiled. They'll love that. At the door, Nathan paused. Rachel? Yes? I'm sorry. For everything. She nodded, understanding what he meant. Good night, Nathan. Good night. As he descended the stairs, Nathan felt the weight of responsibility and the joy of being a father. The small apartment he had just left had little space and old furniture, but it had more love and life than his penthouse ever did, and he knew without a doubt that his life would never be the same, nor did he want it to be. 2 weeks had passed since Nathan's first visit to the apartment. 2 weeks of subtle but profound changes. Nathan parked outside the building, as he did every morning before going to the office. It was 7:30 a.m., and he carried a bag of fresh bread from the corner bakery. He climbed the now familiar stairs and knocked on the door of 203. Rachel opened it, already dressed for work. She'd gotten a part-time job at a department store, thanks to one of Nathan's connections. Good morning, she said, giving him a tired smile. You're really sticking to a routine, huh? Good morning. Are the girls ready? Almost. Sophie is looking for the sock that matches her hair bow. Emily's been ready for 20 minutes. Nathan smiled. That was so typical of them. He stepped into the apartment, which looked brighter now. The new curtains he had brought the previous week let in more light, and there were fresh flowers on the table, another of his weekly gifts. Dad! Sophie came running, one foot socked at the other bare. Did you bring the bread I like? I did, and jam too. Yay! Emily appeared right behind her, fully dressed and with her backpack on. Good morning, she said more quietly, but with a small smile. Good morning, Emily. Did you sleep well? She nodded. I dreamed about that story you told us last night. Nathan felt a wave of satisfaction. Reading to them before bed had become a nightly ritual. Emily always asked for adventure stories. Sophie preferred fairy tales. Let's have breakfast, or you'll be late for school, Rachel said, setting plates on the table. The 4 of them sat down for breakfast. Nathan noted how natural this now felt, as though it had always been this way and not just for 2 weeks. Sophie chattered non-stop about a school project. Emily ate quietly, occasionally correcting Sophie's exaggerations, and Rachel checked the time, worried about getting to work. "I'll drive the girls today," Nathan offered. "You can head straight to the store." Rachel hesitated. "Are you sure the school's in the opposite direction of your office?" "I'm sure. I don't have any meetings until 9. We want to go with Dad," Sophie said through a mouthful of bread. "Sophie, don't talk with your mouth full," Rachel scolded gently. Nathan smiled, still amazed at how easily the girls had accepted him. Sophie from the start, without hesitation. Emily more slowly, more carefully. Rachel nodded, grateful. "Thanks. It really helps." After breakfast, Rachel kissed the girls goodbye and waved to Nathan. "See you tonight. I'll drop them off and then pick you up after your shift," Nathan said. When Rachel left, Nathan turned to the girls. "Ready for school?" Sophie was still hunting for her missing sock. Emily was already at the door, waiting patiently. "I found it," Sophie exclaimed, pulling a colorful sock from under the couch. 10 minutes later, they were in Nathan's car. The girls loved riding in it, a spacious sedan, but not overly flashy. Nathan had considered buying new booster seats, but Rachel insisted the old ones were fine. "Dad, can I turn on the radio?" Sophie asked from the back. "Sure." Sophie promptly found a kids' music station and began singing loudly and off-key. Emily rolled her eyes but tapped her foot in time to the music. At a red light, Nathan checked the mirror, his daughters. It was still hard to believe that these two wonderful girls were his, that for 5 years they'd existed without his knowledge. "What are you thinking about, Dad?" Emily asked, always observant. Nathan smiled. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am to have you two." Sophie giggled. "We're lucky to have you too." Emily said nothing, but her eyes met Nathan's in the mirror. There was something there, not yet complete trust, but maybe the beginning of it. Once at school, Nathan parked and walked them to the gate. Other parents eyed him curiously, the new man who'd appeared in the lives of the Martinez twins. "Have a good day," he said, crouching down. Sophie hugged him tight. "Will you pick us up?" "I can't today. I have an important meeting, but tomorrow I will." Sophie pouted but nodded. "Promise?" "Promise." Emily adjusted her backpack. "Are you picking up Mom from work?" "Yes, I am," she nodded, as though giving approval. "See you later, then." "See you later." Nathan watched them walk inside, Sophie waving multiple times, Emily taking firm steps. Only when they disappeared into the building did he return to his car. That evening, as had become routine, Nathan returned to the apartment for dinner. He brought pizza, to the girls' delight. "Pizza again," Rachel teased. "They're going to get used to this." "It's Friday," Nathan said. "Pizza day." After dinner, while Rachel washed dishes, Nathan sat with the girls at the small table to help with their homework. Sophie was writing a short essay called My Family, with large, uneven letters, occasionally asking for help spelling tricky words. Emily quietly worked on math problems, rarely needing assistance. "Dad, how do you spell entrepreneur?" Sophie asked. "Entrepreneur," he spelled out carefully, adapting the term to English usage. "That's what you are, right?" "Yes, it is." Sophie chewed on her pencil, thinking, "What do you do at the company?" Nathan considered how to explain his job to a 5-year-old. "I help other businesses grow. I find money for them to do important projects." Sophie frowned. "Like a bank?" "Sort of, but banks just lend money. We help businesses use that money wisely." Emily, appearing focused on her homework, was clearly listening. "Do you have a big office?" she asked, without looking up. "I do." "With lots of people?" "Some, yes." Sophie perked up. "Can we visit?" Nathan glanced at Rachel, who was in the kitchen but obviously following the conversation. "What do you think?" he asked. "Could I take them to see the office tomorrow?" Rachel hesitated. "You don't work on Saturdays." "No, but I can show them around. Then we can go to the park and have a picnic." Sophie's eyes lit up. "Picnic? Mom, can we? Can we?" Rachel smiled at her daughter's excitement. "Yes, you can." "Are you coming?" Nathan asked. "I can't. I have an extra shift tomorrow." Nathan nodded, understanding that Rachel was determined to maintain her independence, even with the financial support he offered. So it'll be just me and the girls. The next morning, Nathan arrived early. The girls were already ready, Sophie bouncing with excitement, Emily more subdued but clearly curious. "Behave," Rachel said, tying Sophie's hair ribbon, "and listen to your dad." Nathan noticed the slight hesitation. It was still strange for Rachel to call him the girl's father. "We'll be back before dinner," he promised. In the car, Sophie fired off endless questions. "Is your desk big? Do you have a computer? Is there a soda machine? Can we press the elevator buttons?" Nathan answered patiently, while Emily gazed out the window, taking in the city passing by. They arrived at the company building, and the girls craned their necks to see the skyscraper. "You work all the way up there?" Emily asked. "On the 20th floor." "Wow!" Sophie exclaimed. "That's almost in the sky." In the lobby, the security guard smiled when he saw Nathan with the girls. "Good morning, Mr. Cole. Special visitors today?" "My daughters," Nathan said, feeling an inexplicable pride in uttering those words. "Emily and Sophie." The girls waved timidly. In the elevator, Nathan let Sophie push the button for the 20th floor as promised. She jumped with delight as it began to ascend. "We're flying!" Emily held Nathan's hand, watching the floor numbers climb on the panel. The office was nearly empty on a Saturday, just a few dedicated employees working on tight deadlines. Everyone looked surprised to see Nathan Cole, the always serious director, holding hands with two little girls. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," greeted his secretary, Jennifer, who had come in to organize some documents. "I wasn't expecting you today." "Just here to show my daughters the place," Nathan explained. "Jennifer, these are Emily and Sophie." Jennifer did her best to hide her shock. As far as she knew, her boss had no children. "Hello, girls. Want some chocolate?" "I always keep some in my drawer." Sophie instantly accepted. Emily looked at Nathan, who nodded before taking hers. Nathan gave them a tour of the office, his room, the conference room, the small break area. He explained in simple terms what everyone did, how the company functioned. "Is this where you stay all day?" Emily asked, looking around his office. "Most of the time, yes." "It looks lonely." Nathan glanced at his neat desk, the expensive ergonomic chair, the impressive view of the city. Emily was right. It was lonely. "Sometimes it is," he admitted. Sophie was busy spinning around in his chair. "Look, Emily, you can see the whole city from here." Emily joined her at the window, gazing at the skyline. "Our school is over that way," she said, pointing. "And our apartment's that way," Sophie added, pointing in another direction. Nathan joined them at the window. "And the park where we'll have our picnic is right there," he said, indicating a green area a few blocks away. After half an hour in the office, they said goodbye to Jennifer and the few employees present. In the elevator, Sophie was still talking about the spinning chair. "When I grow up, I want a chair that spins too." Emily was more thoughtful. "Do you like your job, Dad?" The question caught Nathan off guard. "I do. Why do you ask?" "It looks boring to sit and look at numbers all day," Nathan laughed. "Sometimes it is, but it's also satisfying to see the results." Emily nodded, as if she understood perfectly. At the park, Nathan spread out a blanket under a large tree. He'd brought sandwiches, fruit, juice, and cookies, all prepared by himself, with some effort. He wasn't used to doing this sort of thing. "This is delicious," Sophie said, biting into a sandwich. "Did you make it yourself?" Emily asked, examining hers carefully. "I did. I'm not as good as your mom, but I'm learning." Emily took a cautious bite and then smiled. "It's good." Coming from her, that was high praise. After eating, the girls wanted to play on the swings. Nathan pushed them in turn. Sophie asked for higher and higher. Emily preferred a more moderate pace. "Higher, Dad, I want to touch the sky." "If you fall, you'll get hurt," Emily warned. "I won't fall. Dad won't let me, right?" "No, I won't," Nathan said, feeling a fierce protectiveness at the trust in Sophie's voice. After the swings, they tried the slide and the seesaw, and then raced across the grass until all three were out of breath and laughing. Nathan took out his phone. "Shall we take some pictures?" Sophie immediately struck a dramatic pose. Emily stood beside her, more reserved, but smiling. Nathan snapped several photos of them together, then some with each one. "Now one of the three of us," Sophie pleaded. Nathan hesitated. "Who'll take it?" Emily looked around and noticed an older woman walking her dog. "We can ask that lady." Nathan nodded, impressed by Emily's initiative. She was usually so shy around strangers. The woman kindly agreed to take their photo. Nathan crouched between the girls, an arm around each. Sophie gave a big smile. Emily more subdued, but her eyes shone. "What a lovely family," the woman commented, returning the phone. Nathan didn't correct her. Back at the apartment, the girls were exhausted but happy. Rachel was already home from work, preparing dinner. "How was your day?" she asked. "It was amazing," Sophie exclaimed. "Dad's office has a spinning chair, and he has his own room, and we had a picnic and played in the park and took pictures." Rachel smiled. "Sounds like it really was amazing." Emily approached her mom. "He made sandwiches," she said, as if this were an important detail. "They were good." Rachel raised her eyebrows, surprised. Emily rarely praised anyone's cooking but her own mother's. Nathan showed Rachel the photos. She looked through them silently, her eyes softening when she saw the girls' smiles. "Thank you for today," she said quietly so only he could hear. "They look happy. They're incredible, Rachel. You've done an amazing job. We've done it together now. You're doing your part." Nathan felt a tightness in his chest. He was trying every day to make up for lost time, not with gifts or money, but by being there. Breakfast together, helping with homework, reading bedtime stories, taking them out on weekends. There were no grand promises or dramatic declarations, just consistency, the certainty that he'd be there tomorrow and the next day and the next. Sophie had already rushed off to her room to put away a flower she'd picked at the park. Emily lingered in the kitchen, watching the adults. "Are you staying for dinner?" she asked Nathan. "If your mom doesn't mind." Rachel nodded. "I made enough for everyone." Emily seemed pleased and went to join her sister. "She's starting to trust me," Nathan observed as Emily walked away. "Emily takes time to open up, she always has." "I know. I'm not pushing. I'm just showing up." Rachel smiled. That's exactly what she needs, what they both need. That night, as he read the girls their bedtime stories, Nathan noticed Emily sat a bit closer to him than usual, a small gesture, but so meaningful. When he finished the story, Sophie was almost asleep. "Good night, princess," he whispered, kissing her forehead. "Good night, Dad," she murmured drowsily. Turning to Emily, he expected her usual nod. Instead, she leaned in and gave him a quick hug. "Good night, Dad," she said, in her typically serious voice, but with a new softness. "Good night, Emily." Nathan left the room with his heart full. In the hallway, he found Rachel, who had obviously witnessed the moment. "She never," Rachel began, her eyes shining. "Emily never hugs anyone besides me and Sophie." Nathan nodded, grasping its significance. "I'm just trying to be here, every day." "And it's working," Rachel said. "It's really working." That night, driving back to his empty penthouse, Nathan looked at the day's photos once more. 3 smiling faces at the park in the late afternoon sun, a golden glow around them. There were no titles, no vows, just a happy day together, one of many more to come. A month had passed since Nathan had entered the twins' lives. A month of transformations, adaptations, and discoveries. The nightly reading, shared breakfasts, weekend outings, all part of their new routine. That Sunday evening, the 4 of them were sitting in the living room after dinner. Rachel was knitting on the sofa, something she'd started doing again now that she didn't have to work extra hours. Nathan and the girls were on the rug, piecing together a huge jigsaw puzzle he'd brought, a beach scene with 1,000 pieces that promised to keep them busy for days. "This piece goes here," Emily said, focused, placing a section of blue sky. "And this is for the boat," Sophie exclaimed, holding up a red piece. Nathan watched them work together. Emily, methodical, sorting pieces by color and shape. Sophie, more intuitive, trying random fits and celebrating when she got lucky. "How's it going with that giant puzzle?" Rachel asked, glancing up from her knitting. We're making progress, Nathan said. Emily's done almost all the sky. Emily didn't smile, but her eyes shone at the recognition. She was still sparing with her smiles, but Nathan had learned to read other signals. The brightness in her eyes, the more relaxed posture, the way she sat closer to him every day. "Dad, tell us a story from when you were little," Sophie said, still rummaging through puzzle pieces. Nathan thought for a moment. "When I was about your age, my dad took me fishing for the first time. I was so excited I woke up at 5 in the morning and waited by the door." "Did you catch anything?" Sophie asked. "Not a single fish. Actually, I fell in the lake and my dad had to pull me out." Sophie laughed out loud. Emily gave a small smile. "Would you two like to go fishing someday?" Nathan asked. "Yes," Sophie answered without hesitation. Emily shrugged. "Maybe." Rachel listened from the sofa, a gentle smile on her face. Over the past weeks, she, too, had relaxed around Nathan. The initial tension had given way to a cautious truce, sometimes even warmth. "Is your dad still alive?" Emily suddenly asked. Nathan shook his head. "No. He passed away when I was 16. "Did you miss him a lot?" Emily continued, her eyes focused and inquisitive. Nathan felt the weight of the question. Emily rarely asked personal things. "I did. I still do. He was a good man." Sophie stopped sifting through puzzle pieces and looked at Nathan. "We always wanted to know who our dad was," she said with the frankness only a child can have. Silence descended on the room. Rachel paused her knitting, her needles motionless in her hands. Emily glanced at her sister, then at Nathan. "We used to make up stories," she said softly, "but they were just stories." Nathan felt a lump in his throat. He imagined them as younger girls, asking about the father they'd never met, spinning fantasies to fill the gap. "What kind of stories?" he managed to ask. Sophie grinned. "Sometimes you were an astronaut." "Or a firefighter," Emily added. "Once you were a king in a faraway kingdom," Sophie chimed in. "Sophie's stories were the wildest," Emily explained. "I tried to be more realistic." Nathan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "And what did you imagine, Emily?" he asked gently. Emily looked at her hands. "I thought maybe you were someone who had to leave for work far away. Maybe you couldn't come back, but you wanted to." Nathan's heart squeezed. Even in her fantasies, Emily had searched for an explanation that wouldn't hurt too much. Rachel's eyes filled with tears now, but she stayed silent. "The other girls at school all had dads," Sophie said. "They asked about ours." "We'd say you were traveling," Emily concluded. "It was easier than explaining we didn't know who you were." Nathan took a deep breath. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. It's not your fault," Emily said, surprising everyone with her defense. "You didn't know about us." "Even so, I missed so much." Sophie scooted closer and rested her head on his shoulder. "But now you're here." Nathan embraced Sophie, feeling her warmth against him. Emily stayed where she was, but her eyes never left his. "Now you know the truth," Nathan said, looking at both of them. "And you have me if you want me." "We do," Sophie answered immediately. Everyone looked at Emily, who was silent for a long moment. "You're not going away again?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "No," Nathan said with conviction. "Never again." Emily nodded, as though sealing a deal. "Then okay." Rachel discreetly wiped away a tear. "Time for bed, girls. It's late." "Oh, Mom," Sophie protested. "We haven't even finished the puzzle sky." "It'll still be here tomorrow," Rachel said. "And so will your dad." Nathan felt a surge of gratitude hearing Rachel refer to him as their father without any hesitation. "Can I read the story tonight?" he asked. Rachel nodded. After their nighttime routine, teeth brushed, pajamas on, choosing a book, Nathan sat between their beds. He read The Little Prince, one of Emily's favorites. Sophie fell asleep halfway through, but Emily stayed awake till the end, soaking up every word. When he finished, she was watching him with those thoughtful eyes. "Dad?" Nathan's heart still skipped a beat when she called him that. "Yes? You're really different from the stories we made up." Nathan smiled. "Better or worse?" Emily considered the question. "Different, but real." Nathan understood exactly what she meant. Real was better than any fantasy. "Good night, Emily." "Good night, Dad." In the living room, Rachel waited for him. They had their own little ritual now. After the girls went to sleep, they talked for a few minutes, planning the next day, sharing concerns and small victories. "They really made up stories about me?" Nathan asked, keeping his voice low. Rachel nodded. "All the time. That's how they dealt with your absence. I'm sorry, Rachel, that you had to go through this alone." "I'm not alone anymore," she said simply. The next morning, Nathan didn't show up for breakfast as usual. Instead, he sent Rachel a message. "Need to handle a few things. I'll pick up the girls from school." Rachel was puzzled but didn't question him. Lately, she'd learned to trust him again. Throughout the day, Nathan spent his time in a sleek downtown office. Not his own, but that of Frederick Harris, his personal attorney for years. "Are you sure about this, Nathan?" Harris asked, looking at the documents before him. "Absolutely. Legal paternity acknowledgement is a serious step. You'll have responsibilities." "I already do, Fred. I'm just making it official." The lawyer nodded. "DNA tests?" "Not needed. They're my daughters." "I know it." Harris smiled. "I never thought I'd see Nathan Cole, Mr. Numbers and Contracts, making a decision purely from the heart." "The best decisions usually are," Nathan replied. That afternoon, he picked up the girls from school as promised. Sophie ran to him as she always did, Emily following a few steps behind with her slight smile of welcome. "Ice cream?" Sophie asked hopefully. "Something even better," Nathan said. "We're doing something very important." At the county clerk's office, the girls watched curiously as the adults in suits stamped and signed documents. "What are we doing here?" Emily asked. "I'm officially registering you as my daughters," Nathan explained, "so everyone knows legally that I'm your father." Sophie clapped. "Is it like getting married?" Nathan chuckled. "Not exactly. It's just a paper that says you're my daughters, no doubt about it." Emily, always the serious one, understood the significance. "So we'll have your last name?" "Yes, if you and your mom agree, you'll be Emily and Sophie Cole." Emily thought for a moment. "Emily Cole." She tested the sound. "It feels right." It was the highest praise she could give. After leaving the clerk's office, the official documents safely stored in Nathan's folder, the late afternoon sun bathed the city in golden light. "Are we really a real family now?" Sophie asked, holding Nathan's hand. Nathan looked at Emily on the other side, her small hand also in his. "We always were," he answered. "The paper just proves what we already knew." On the way home, Nathan watched the girls in the rearview mirror. The silence that had grown with them for 5 years, the silence of absence, unanswered questions, and made-up stories, was starting to be filled in. Not with noise or grand promises, but with the simple truth of his presence. Nathan parked in front of the small apartment building where Rachel and the girls lived, a scene that had become familiar to him. He glanced at the envelope on the passenger seat, a surprise he'd been planning for weeks. His heart raced in anticipation. It was Saturday morning, and he had promised to take the girls to the park. But today would be different. Today, if everything went as planned, it would mark the beginning of a new phase for all of them. He climbed the now familiar stairs, hearing the girls' excited voices before he even knocked. He smiled. Their laughter was like music to his ears. Rachel opened the door, looking tired but smiling. "Good morning." "They're almost ready." "Actually," Nathan said, "I have a different idea for today. Something I want to show the three of you." Rachel raised her eyebrows, curious. "What is it?" "A surprise." "Do you trust me?" Before Rachel could answer, Sophie came running. "A surprise? I love surprises." Emily appeared right behind, more cautious, but clearly intrigued. "What kind of surprise?" she asked. Nathan grinned. "If I tell you, it won't be a surprise, and will it?" Sophie bounced on her toes. "Come on, Mom, let's see the surprise." Rachel hesitated. "Should we dress up?" "You're perfect as you are," Nathan replied. "Just grab jackets, it might get chilly later." 20 minutes later, the four of them were in Nathan's car. Sophie chattered endlessly, guessing everything from a secret zoo to a princess castle. Emily watched out the window, trying to deduce their destination by the streets they took. Rachel remained silent, but clearly curious. "Everything okay?" Nathan asked softly, while the girls talked in the back seat. "A bit nervous," Rachel admitted. "You're being mysterious," Nathan smiled. "It's something good, I promise." After about 20 minutes, Nathan turned onto a tree-lined street in a quiet neighborhood. Neat houses, small but well-kept front yards, kids riding bikes, a family-oriented place, welcoming. "Where are we?" Emily asked, looking out the window. "It looks so pretty," Sophie exclaimed. "Look at that blue house." Nathan slowed down and parked in front of a 2-story yellow house with white trim. Not too big, not too small. There was a small front garden with a stone path leading to the front door. "We're here," he said, turning off the engine. Rachel glanced at the house, then at Nathan, silently questioning. "Let's take a look," he said, stepping out and opening the door for the girls. Sophie hopped out and ran straight to the little garden. Emily exited more cautiously, studying the house. "Whose house is this?" she asked. Nathan pulled a set of keys from his pocket. "Why don't we go inside and find out?" Rachel stayed by the car, as though her feet were glued to the sidewalk. "Nathan, trust me, Rachel," he said gently. "Please." She finally moved, following him up the stone path to the door. Nathan unlocked it and stepped aside so they could enter first. The living room was bright and spacious, with large windows letting in plenty of sunlight. The furniture was new but not extravagant, just a comfy sofa, armchairs and a wooden coffee table. The walls were painted a soft cream, decorated with simple landscape prints. "Wow!" Sophie exclaimed, running inside. "This house is so pretty." Emily came in slowly, looking around. Rachel remained near the door, eyes going from Nathan to the house and back again. "What is this?" she finally asked. Nathan took a breath. "It's a house. For you. For us, if you'll allow it." Silence settled over them. Sophie stopped running, looking at the grown-ups. Emily stood still, her eyes taking in every detail. Rachel shook her head, stunned. "You bought a house?" "Yes." Without talking to me first. "I wanted it to be a surprise." Rachel took a step back. "Nathan, we can't accept this. It's too much." "Please," he said, "at least look at the rest before deciding." Sophie was already tugging on her mother's hand. "Let's see. Mom, please." Rachel hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, let's see." Nathan showed them around. The kitchen was cozy and functional, with light wooden cabinets, a big table for family meals, and new but not fancy appliances. There was a small den at the back, with shelves for books and a space that could be used for studying. Upstairs, there were 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The master bedroom was roomy, with a queen-size bed and a modest closet. "And here," Nathan said, opening the door to the second bedroom, "is Emily's room." It was medium-sized, painted a soft green. There was a new bed, a desk under the window overlooking the backyard, and a bookshelf. In the corner stood a small table with art supplies, colored pencils, sketchbooks, paints. Emily's eyes went wide. "This is for me?" "Yes," Nathan confirmed. "Do you like it?" Emily walked around the room, touching the desk, looking out the window, examining the art materials. Her expression was pure wonder. "It's perfect," she whispered at last. Sophie was impatient. "Where's mine? Where's mine?" Nathan smiled and opened the third bedroom door. "Here." Sophie's room was painted in shades of light blue and purple, her favorite colors. It had a bed with a small canopy, something she'd always wanted, a bright toy box and shelves for books and knickknacks. On the ceiling were glow-in-the-dark stars. Sophie shrieked with joy and jumped on the bed. "This is the most beautiful room ever." Rachel lingered in the doorway, watching her daughters explore their new rooms, tears in her eyes. "Nathan, this is... I don't know what to say." He led her back to the hallway, giving the girls space to explore. "I know I should have talked to you first," he said, "but I wanted to do this. They deserve space and comfort. You deserve to sleep in an actual bed, not a sofa." Rachel ran her hands over her face. "It's beautiful, but we can't accept... Please, Rachel. It's not a mansion. It's not extravagant. It's just a safe, comfortable home for our daughters to grow up in." She looked at him, taking in the word our. "And you?" she asked. "Where will you stay?" Nathan hesitated. "That depends on you. There's a small office downstairs that can be converted into a bedroom for me, or I can keep living in my apartment and come visit." "Whatever you prefer." Rachel closed her eyes for a moment. "You really thought of everything." "I tried." The sound of the girls' laughter echoed in the hallway. Rachel glanced toward the bedrooms, then back at Nathan. "They're already in love with this place. And you." She gave a small smile. "It's hard not to fall in love." Nathan felt a wave of relief. "So you'll stay?" Rachel took a deep breath. "We need to have a serious conversation about finances and responsibilities. I don't want to live off charity, even if it's from my daughter's father." "It's not charity, Rachel. It's family." The word hung between them, loaded with meaning. "We need clear boundaries," she continued, "for the girls' sake. And ours. Whatever you want." Rachel looked toward the bedrooms again, where her daughters squealed with excitement over their new spaces. "All right," she said finally. "Let's try." Nathan felt a huge weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you." They went back to the rooms. Sophie was showing Emily how the glow-in-the-dark stars would probably light up at night. "Mom, look what Dad did," Sophie exclaimed. "Can I sleep here tonight?" Rachel smiled. "Not tonight, honey. We have to organize the move first." "When? Tomorrow?" Nathan and Rachel exchanged glances. "Maybe next week," Nathan suggested. "We need to pack your things, transfer utilities, let the school know." Emily, who had been quiet, approached Rachel. "Are we really going to live here, Mum?" Rachel stroked her daughter's hair. "Yes, sweetheart, we are." The smile that lit up Emily's usually serious face was rare and precious. Over the following weeks, the move happened gradually. Nathan helped with every detail, hiring movers, transferring utilities, dealing with school paperwork. Rachel quit her job at the store. With the new financial situation, she could focus on finding work she actually enjoyed, maybe even go back to studying. As for Nathan, he opted to stay in the small downstairs office converted into a bedroom. It was a temporary arrangement, Rachel insisted, until everyone adjusted. Moving day was chaotic but exciting. The girls dashed around, deciding where to place their few belongings in their spacious new rooms. Rachel looked overwhelmed at first, as though she couldn't believe this house was truly theirs. "Feels like a dream," she commented while unpacking the kitchen. "Like I'll wake up back in that cramped apartment." Nathan set a box on the counter. "It's real. Promise." That night, after the main boxes were unpacked and some semblance of order was established, they ordered pizza, a Friday night tradition they'd maintained. They sat around the new kitchen table, still getting used to having enough room for everyone. "Here's to new beginnings," Nathan said, raising his soda cup. "To new beginnings," Rachel and the girls echoed. Sophie munched her pizza enthusiastically. "This is the best day of my life." Emily smiled, more quietly, but her eyes shone with excitement. "Thank you, Dad," she said simply. Nathan's heart soared at those two words, Dad. She spoke it with greater ease now, no hesitation. In the days that followed, the house became a home. Nathan pinned up the girls' drawings on the fridge, a tradition from the old place that he wanted to continue. Rachel planted flowers in the little front garden. The bookshelves were filled with their favorite volumes, the walls with photographs. A routine settled in. Nathan, who had adjusted his work hours, was present for breakfast most mornings. Sometimes he took the girls to school. Other times, Rachel did. In the evenings, whoever got home first started dinner, and every night, without fail, Nathan read the girls a story before bed. One evening, about a month after the move, Nathan was finishing a chapter of the Chronicles of Narnia with Emily, while Sophie slept in her own room. "We'll pick up the next chapter tomorrow," he said, closing the book. Emily, already cozy under her blankets, looked at him with those thoughtful eyes. "Dad?" "Yes." "Do you like living here with us?" Nathan smiled. "It's the best thing that's ever happened to me." "Really? Isn't it too small for you? Your other place was huge." "And empty," he said honestly. "I'd rather have a smaller place full of people I love than a big, empty place." Emily nodded, as if it made perfect sense. "I'm glad you found us," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Me too, Emily. More than you can imagine." She sat up and, to Nathan's surprise, gave him a long hug. Not a quick one like before, but a tight, lingering one, full of meaning. "Good night, Dad," she said against his chest. "Good night, Emily," he replied, voice trembling with emotion. In the hallway, he found Rachel, who had obviously overheard. "She's never been one to show affection," Rachel said quietly. "Not even with me sometimes." "She feels safe," Nathan replied. "That's all I ever wanted to give them. Safety." Rachel nodded. "You've done it." The next morning, a sunny Saturday, Nathan woke to the sound of laughter in the kitchen. He got up from the pull-out sofa bed in the small downstairs office and followed the noise. Rachel was making pancakes while the girls helped, or tried to. Sophie had flour on her nose and in her hair. Emily stirred the batter with total focus. "Morning," he greeted from the doorway. "Dad!" Sophie exclaimed, running over and hugging his legs, transferring half the flour to his pajama pants. "We're making a surprise breakfast." "It wasn't supposed to be a surprise," Emily corrected. "You spoiled it, Sophie." "Oops," Sophie said, not sounding very sorry. Nathan laughed and picked Sophie up, not minding the flour. "It's the best unsurprise ever." After breakfast, they decided to work in the backyard. Nathan had bought gardening tools and plants the day before. While he dug holes for new shrubs, Rachel planted flowers by the fence. The girls had their own little toy gardening tools, mostly causing a delightful mess. "Look, Dad." "A worm," Sophie shouted, holding the wriggling creature in her dirty fingers. "Be careful not to hurt it," Nathan advised. "Worms are good for the soil." Emily was more interested in the butterflies visiting the few flowers already planted. "Can we make a butterfly garden?" she asked. "I read about it at school." "Sure we can," Nathan said. "We'll research which plants attract them best." By late afternoon, everyone was tired and dirty, but the backyard was starting to look promising. They sat on the back steps, drinking lemonade Rachel had made. "It's looking good," Rachel commented, surveying their work. "It'll look even better when everything grows," Nathan added. Sophie, worn out from all the activity, leaned against him, her eyes starting to close. Suddenly she mumbled, "I love you, Dad." Nathan froze, her words hitting him like lightning. It was the first time either of the girls had said that. "I love you too, Sophie," he managed, voice trembling. He looked over at Emily, who watched them with those keen eyes. She didn't say anything, but she smiled. A rare, precious smile that spoke volumes. That night, after the girls went to bed, Nathan found Rachel on the front porch, gazing at the stars. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, sitting in the chair beside her. "How life changes," she replied. "How 2 months ago, I was up at night worrying about overdue bills, and now," she gestured to the house behind them, "all this. Any regrets?" "None. For the first time in years, I feel at peace." Nathan nodded. "Me too." They sat in companionable silence, enjoying the quiet neighborhood, the sense of security. "Sophie told me she loves me today," Nathan said, still in awe. Rachel smiled. "She's always been direct with her feelings." "And Emily?" "Emily shows hers in other ways, by how closely she listens when you talk, how she remembers the stories you tell, how she draws the three of you together." Nathan felt his throat tighten. "I'm trying to do everything right, Rachel. To be the dad they deserve." "You're doing great," she assured him. "It's not about big gestures, Nathan. It's about being there, showing up for dinner, asking about their day, putting their drawings on the fridge, reading bedtime stories." Nathan knew she was right. Love was in the small daily gestures, in consistency, in trust built day by day. In this new house, with its bright, cozy spaces with separate rooms for each of them, and the garden growing, they were building not just a physical home, but an emotional one, a place to belong, a real new beginning. And it was only the beginning. The backyard now had flowers planted by the girls, a small butterfly garden Emily tended with meticulous care, and even a birdhouse that Nathan and Sophie had built together. In the kitchen, the fridge was covered with drawings, shopping lists, and a family calendar with everyone's schedules. The bedrooms were already full of books, toys, and small treasures collected over the months. That Sunday afternoon was cool, but the sun was warm enough to sit on the front porch. Nathan was there with the girls after lunch, while Rachel finished up some chores inside. "Uno!" Sophie shouted, holding her penultimate card triumphantly. "You can't put a +4 on top of another +4, Emily argued, frowning at her sister. "Yes, you can," Sophie insisted. Nathan hid a smile. Arguments over game rules were common between the twins, with Emily always enforcing strict adherence and Sophie trying to bend them. "Let's check the rules," he suggested, picking up the instruction leaflet they kept handy for these exact moments. Emily folded her arms confidently. "I've read the rules 3 times. You can't stack +4 cards." Nathan scanned the leaflet. "Emily's right," he said, pointing to the relevant paragraph. "You can't play a +4 on top of another." Sophie pouted. "That's a silly rule." "Rules exist for a reason," Emily said, satisfied. "It's just a game," Sophie mumbled, reluctantly drawing 4 new cards. Nathan observed how different they were in their approach to everything. Sophie, impulsive and emotional. Emily, methodical and logical. They really were 2 sides of the same coin. "Remember what we said about playing together?" he gently reminded them. The girls responded in unison, repeating what they'd heard many times. "It's not about winning, it's about having fun together." Nathan smiled. "Exactly." He played his turn, placing a green card that made Sophie groan. She only had red and blue left in her now bloated hand. "Dad, you always play the cards I don't have." "Pure coincidence," he teased, winking at Emily, who hid a smile. He watched Sophie count her cards, biting her lip in concentration, a habit she'd had since he first met her. Emily arranged hers by color and number, a strategy that often led her to victory. These moments, playing cards on a Sunday afternoon, listening to the girls bicker, settling small disputes, had become Nathan's most cherished. Nothing in his old life, no million-dollar deals, first-class business trips, or fancy dinners, compared to the simple joy of being here with his daughters. The front door opened, and Rachel stepped onto the porch, drying her hands on a dish towel. She'd recently cut her hair, a modern style that framed her face, and started an online course in graphic design, something she'd always wanted to study. She seemed younger, lighter, as if years of worry had lifted. "Who's winning?" she asked, leaning on the porch railing. "Emily," Sophie sighed dramatically, "as usual." "It's not over yet," Emily said, though her little smile suggested she felt confident about her odds. Rachel watched them for a moment, a thoughtful expression on her face. Nathan often caught her gazing at them like this, as though still getting used to the reality of their reunited family, storing the memory in her mind. "What is it?" he asked. Rachel shook her head. "Nothing, just observing." They continued the game, with Emily eventually announcing "you know," and 2 turns later, laying down her last card with a satisfied grin. "I win." Sophie threw her cards on the table with a dramatic groan. "Emily always wins. Let's play something else." "Something I can win." "Like what?" Emily teased. "You can't beat me at memory either, and that's pure luck." "It's not luck, it's strategy," Sophie insisted. "How about a break?" Nathan suggested, seeing tension brewing. "We can have some of that apple juice your mom made." The girls agreed. The homemade apple juice was a household favorite. "I'll get it," Emily offered, standing up. "I'll go with you." Sophie followed her sister inside, cards forgotten. Rachel took Emily's seat, glancing at the scattered Uno deck. "Uno?" she asked. "The only game in which Emily and Sophie managed to disagree on every single rule," Nathan joked. "They're like that about everything. Always have been. Even as babies, if one slept, the other stayed awake. One loved baths, the other screamed in the tub." Nathan smiled, imagining the girls as infants. "I wish I had been there," he said softly. Rachel looked at him for a long moment. "I know." They fell into a companionable silence, the sound of leaves rustling in the wind filling the air. It was a comfortable silence, not like the tense ones of the early days. Over the past months, they had built a cautious friendship, then a partnership, and finally, something that felt like real trust. "You've changed," Rachel said suddenly, breaking the quiet. Nathan glanced at her, surprised by the observation. "I had to," he replied simply. Rachel nodded, her gaze distant, as though she saw not just the Nathan of today but also the young man she'd known years ago. Deep down, she hesitated, searching for words. "I always knew you'd be a good father. I just couldn't count on it." Nathan was taken aback by this statement. After everything, the years apart, Rachel's anger when he reappeared, her initial resistance, hearing her say she'd always believed in him on some level, was unexpected. "What do you mean?" he asked. Rachel sighed, absent-mindedly sorting the cards left behind by the girls. "When I found out I was pregnant, my first instinct was to tell you. Believe it or not, I even picked up the phone a few times. Once I actually dialed your number. I never knew. How could you?" She shrugged. "But something told me that if you knew, you'd want to be part of their lives. It's just, back then, you weren't ready. Neither was I. We were so young, so focused on our careers." "You were ready enough," he said. "You raised them beautifully." "I didn't have a choice," she replied, and without bitterness. "And honestly, they saved me. They gave me purpose when I was completely lost." Nathan thought about how circumstances shape people, how choices, or lack thereof, determine paths. "Do you think if you told me then we would have—" He left the question hanging. Rachel looked him straight in the eye. "I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. We were different people." "I was immature," he admitted. "Selfish. And I was too stubborn and proud," she said with a small smile. "We probably would have killed each other." Nathan chuckled. "Probably." Rachel looked back toward the house, where the girls' voices filtered through from the kitchen. "But now," she hesitated, "now I think we're doing a good job, together." "We are," he agreed, feeling a wave of gratitude. "Thank you for giving me this chance, Rachel. I know it wasn't easy." "It wasn't," she confirmed. "But seeing you with them," she smiled, a real smile that lit up her eyes. "It's worth it." The girls returned, each carefully carrying a cup of juice. Sophie had a damp spot on her shirt, proof of a small spill, but beamed proudly at having brought it mostly full. "We brought you some too," she announced, placing a cup in front of Nathan. Emily handed the other to Rachel. "I put ice in it, just how you like," she said. "Thank you, sweetheart," Rachel replied, touching her daughter's cheek fondly. The girls sat back in their places, Sophie still debating which game they should play next, Emily calmly explaining why her choice was more logical. Nathan watched them, his heart overflowing with a love that continued to surprise him with its intensity. "Can we play Monopoly?" Sophie suggested. "Dad said he'd teach me." "That takes forever," Emily protested. "And you always quit halfway." "I do not." "Yes, you do. Like you did with that 1,000-piece puzzle. That was too hard." Rachel and Nathan exchanged amused looks over their daughters' heads. There was a silent understanding between them now, a recognition that despite all the mistakes and separations, something good had emerged. "How about Scrabble?" Rachel suggested. "We can play in teams. Me and Emily versus you two." "Yes," Sophie clapped, always excited to team up with her dad. Emily considered the idea. "Sounds fair. Mom and I are good with words." "Hey, don't underestimate Team Sophie, Nathan," Nathan teased. "We're pretty creative." "Yeah, super duper creative," Sophie agreed. While Rachel went inside to get the Scrabble box, Nathan helped the girls gather the Uno cards. The sun was starting to set, casting a golden light on the porch. From there, he could see the quiet street, the other houses, and the simple, normal life he'd never imagined for himself, but now realized was all he wanted. Rachel returned with the Scrabble board and sat down. For a moment, all four of them were busy sorting tiles, drawing letters, and debating the rules. Nathan glanced at them, his daughters, their mother, the family he'd almost missed, and felt an overwhelming sense of peace. They couldn't reclaim lost time. The 5 years gone, the first steps and first words, those were forever in the past. But they had now, Sunday afternoons playing games on the porch, family dinners, bedtime stories, and they had tomorrow, graduations, dances, college, a whole life ahead. "Dad, it's our turn," Sophie said, tugging on his sleeve. "What word should we make?" Nathan smiled at her, then at Emily, and finally at Rachel. "A good one," he promised. A really good one. And he knew he wasn't just talking about the game, but about the life they were building together. One word, one piece, one day at a time. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.